Good night.
Good night, love Debbie.
I'll try to get her to go out.
Yeah, and maybe call the cash. See.
I've been trying.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Hello, Martha. How are you?
Doing great. How are you? And you're drinking.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, I'm still drinking a lot.
Good, good, good.
Yeah, I have to because I keep getting reminded over and over again.
Well, just until it becomes a habit, right?
Well, yeah, I guess. But let's see. What else?
You had mentioned they had given you 3 liters of that fluid, right? When you started
Oh,
feeling better.
in the hospital? Yeah, they
Yeah.
gave me two. They gave me two, and then the blood test said I was still uh
Dehydrated, huh?
still dehydrated, but
Yeah.
I went on home and then uh it was fine after that.
They had
Sort
to
of.
give me 7 liters to bring me
What,
back.
during your surgery?
No, no, when I went septic and got so sick and had to get back in the hospital, they had to give me
Oh,
7 liters.
yeah, well, that was just to flush you out.
That was to bring me back from the brink of death. I really felt like what are those dry bones?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, felt like dry bones.
Well, I thought, yeah, I thought that was my next stop too when that all happened, and so that's why uh I guess that's why I started singing the Shema. So yeah, and like I said, I don't even remember doing that, but that's just part of I knew if I was checking out, that was what I was supposed to do, is to recite the Shema on my way out, so
Okay, well, it wasn't your time, so
it
glad you're
wasn't
back
my
with
time.
us.
No, Tuesday night was not a good time to die. So uh, anyway, plus I didn't have my garden in yet this spring.
Oh yeah, can't leave before you do that.
No, heck no.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I've got a different routine nowadays. I start out with some kind of a berry flavored what do you call it, electrolyte first thing in the morning before I even do my coffee. So that's up. Okay, everybody's rolling in here. But I can say I did have one small victory this week. I had noticed, I think I mentioned it yesterday. I'd noticed that I had a leaking yard faucet riser, and it had created a swamp in my backyard, and so I didn't even know it till I walked back there and sank down pretty deep, and
Wow.
so found out that it was after a lot of digging where I just knew where this pipe was, but it wasn't. And so after a lot of digging and stuff, I finally found the pipe um, underneath one of my wife's flower beds that's all encased in brick and all
Oh,
that kind of
no.
stuff. And so I dug and I dug and finally got the pipe, got to where I could get to it. And then I rerouted it to a different place to where I could actually get to it better, and put it all back together again with PVC, and the dope, the purple stuff, and the glue and all
Right.
that kind of stuff that normally just leads me to repentance, because I'm just so frustrated that I think nasty thoughts about PVC and whoever invented it. And so, but put it all together. I thought I had all the parts, and then I looked and it says, that's great. And I went to get my glue, and the glue had solidified. So I had to go to town to get some
Oh,
glue.
no.
But I got it all put together, and now it's been 2 days. I went out there and looked, and there's no sign of leaking.
All
So
right.
I mean, yeah, when I do plumbing, it's almost never, and almost never get it right the first time. So, but this time I took my time, and because it was muddy and it was a mess, and I'd already had to um, um, the first day when I was digging in all that mud, I was covered from head to toe, and I don't even know how I happened to do that. But Pat wouldn't even let me in the house with those with my work pants on, and so I had to take those off and spray them down with high pressure water just to get the
Oh,
mud out.
wow.
So
Well,
anyway, it's working, and now in the next day or so, I'll put all of the dirt back and all that stuff. So it was a good deal. Anytime I can do plumbing and it doesn't leak, it's a good day. So all right, well, it's 7:04, and it looks like we got just about everybody that's going to be there is going to be there, and so we've got a couple of um, we have a couple of new ones here tonight. I see a Miss Fisher and Just Me Jen. So welcome into our class tonight. And I don't know who iPhone 2 is up there. That's if that's Ed and Colette. I don't know. Sometimes they're iPhone. But anyway, welcome in all of you. And this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 5. And also, oh, Carmen, yeah, you had something to say there.
Oh, I just wanted to say, well, this is about all that work you do. You talked one time about buying some kind of Bowflex or something. I don't see you need to buy any kind of exercise equipment with all that dirt out, dirt in. Sounds like you get a lot to me. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I still have probably, I need to go and get I don't know, 4-6 yards of garden soil and top off my garden beds and with that and compost and stuff. So yeah, I'll be doing some digging here. Yeah, well, if I don't get it done now, I'll have to fiddle with it after Passover, because Passover is coming up and I'll be really busy with that. So whatever. So anyway, let me slide this over here. All right, good deal. So book of Jeremiah, chapter 5. And so people that are looking online and not doing this live, just be aware that this is an extension of Tree of Life Messianic Congregation in Katy, Texas, which is on the west side of Houston. And you can also see this. In fact, this video is in YouTube, our YouTube channel, Tree of Life 2017, and it is on a playlist called, oddly enough, Book of Jeremiah. So you could find it, and as we go, I'm slowly but surely cataloging and rearranging all of the videos, and I think there's 800 of them into playlist where people can actually find stuff. And so it's a big job, and actually I've hired somebody to do that starting in May, but because she had other commitments, and so she's going to start in May. But that'll be great because we can get all of that YouTube stuff to where you can actually find things, and I'm looking forward to that. So let's go ahead and here's my my timeline that you've all been seeing for about 10 years now, and tells us where we are in the scheme of things, and the dates that are important to the book of Jeremiah. And so finally, here we are. Jeremiah 5:1-3. Roam the streets of Jerusalem, look around and consider, search through her squares. If you can find a person, if there is one who does justice, who seeks truth, then I will pardon the city. Though they say, as Adonai lives, surely they swear falsely. Adonai, do your eyes not look for faithfulness? You struck them, but they did not grieve. You disciplined them, but they refused correction. They made their faces harder than stone. They refused to listen. Okay, so we got a couple of speakers here. Well, actually about 3 speakers in this one little section here. And I've divided the study up tonight into 8 sections. And so that each section will have some scriptures in it that make it more of a cohesive, understandable study. So anyway, there we are. Now, this reminds me of my classical education, and it says, if you can find a person, look around the streets of Jerusalem and search through her squares. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Diogenes, but he was a Greek philosopher sometime after this period, and he went through the city of, I guess it was Athens, with a lantern during the daytime. He had a lantern. Now, who goes through the city with a lantern during the day? And they ask him what he's doing. He's looking for an honest man, is what he says. And so that's what reminded me of what it reminded me of was Diogenes looking for an honest man. Has nothing to do with our lesson tonight, other than it just the lesson reminded me of Diogenes. Okay, so going on. Jeremiah 5 opens with really one of the most striking and tragic challenges in prophetic literature. God sends Jeremiah on this symbolic search through Jerusalem. Now, is it symbolic? Did he actually send him through Jerusalem, or was it just a rhetorical exercise? We don't know. It doesn't matter. But he says, go on this search through Jerusalem and go through it and seek out her open squares. So the mission is simple in theory, but really is devastating in its implication, in that if you can find just one person who practices justice and seeks the truth, then the entire city will be pardoned. Now, the bar here is not 10 righteous men, like with Abraham when he was interceding for Sodom. It's not 5, and it's not even 2 or 3. It's just one. If you can just find one single guy that is honest and not corrupt, then God says, I will spare the city. So this is not a literal census as such, but it's a rhetorical exposure of Judah's spiritual condition. And these open squares that they're talking about, go through and seek through the squares, that represents public life. The courts, the markets, the places where justice should be visible and truth should be practiced. And so Jeremiah is not told to search in the hidden corners or in private homes. He's sent to the places where righteousness should be the most evident. And so the implication here is that public righteousness has collapsed. The city's moral infrastructure has failed. And so verse 2 then intensifies this indictment from God. And he says, the people still swear as God lives, as Adonai lives, but their oath is empty. They are invoking God's name, but their lives, they live lives totally opposite of what the Torah requires. And so their whole religious outlook is nothing but hypocrisy. And they're using sacred language to cover up or mask a disobedient and rebellious heart. So they can talk the talk, but they're not walking the walk, is what it amounts to. And verse 3 brings Jeremiah's lament into focus. He acknowledges God's eyes are upon truth. The divine standard is not ritual performance. God, he looks at the rituals and the liturgy and all of that kind of stuff, and yeah, okay, good. But what he's looking for is actual covenant fidelity. He's looking for people who are not only they talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And they've and the people, this is not their first bit of being chastised by God for their hypocrisy and their stubbornness and all that, because they've been hit before, and yet they just double down. When God has told them what they need to do, he sent oppressors against them to make sure that they do what they're supposed to do. And it says they made their faces like rock or harder than rocks. And so they just double down on stupid. And so judgment is not coming because Judah failed once, but because Judah failed again and again and again. They refuse to respond to any kind of correction. And so this just kind of sets the whole character of Jerusalem as just one of rebellion and just in open opposition to the things of God is what it amounts to. They've just hardened their hearts. So Jeremiah 4:5. Then I said, these are only the poor. They are foolish. They do not know the way of Adonai, the ordinance of their God. I will go to the distinguished and speak to them. Surely they know the way of Adonai, the ordinance of their God. But they too had broken the yoke and torn off the bonds. All right, so what we have here is Jeremiah. He says, "Okay, well, I'm going to go." He came to the point that he couldn't find anybody. He says, "Well, maybe if I'll diagnose this thing. So what is it? What causes it? Well, I went to the poor people, and they were basically ignorant," he said, and they didn't have education. And so he's trying to reason. Jeremiah's trying to say, well, because they haven't been properly educated, they don't really know God's commandments for their lives, and so they really can't. He calls them foolish, but the Greek there is not so much foolish as it is uneducated or ignorant. And so he just said, well, they really haven't been properly taught, so you can't really lay that against them. But then he says, I know, I will go to the what's the distinguished is what our translation said, or other translation says, I will go to the great ones. And so the educated class, the royal class, the priestly class, and surely they will know what God's word is for them, and they will know what they should be doing. They would be the model of justice, and they would, because of their education, they would restrain the nation from idolatry and oppression. But what he found was that the educated class are even worse than the uneducated class, because now they have power, they have education, they know things, and so they just use that to their advantage to oppress the poor people even more. And so he said they've just broken their yoke and their bonds, and so it's kind of like now I've never done anything like that with plowing a field with an oxen. Okay, I'm not that old, but I do know about Ford tractors and John Deere tractors and plowing, and but if you have an oxen, some kind of an ox, big old cow, bovine, and you try to put a yoke on him, and he won't take the yoke. Something that goes across his neck, and then they hook the traces of the plow on him, and he kicks at the traces, or he turns his head and tries to gore you with his horns, and he just will not obey, and he will not settle down into the yoke. And so what do you do with that? Well, you change his name to Sirloin and get rid of him, because if he won't plow, he's no good to you, to the farmer, and in fact he could be harmful to the farmer. So what we see here is that the city of Jerusalem and the nation of Judah is corrupt. I mean, from the top to the bottom, and no one is without excuse here. So the sin is not confined just to one economic strata or one social strata. It is from top to bottom. The very elites, the king, the priest, the princes, all of. I don't know that they had a Congress, so that whether or not they had Congress critters, but they had something equivalent to that. All of them were corrupt, all the way down the prophets, and even the common man, who had no power and very little opportunity. Still, they were corrupt in their own way. And so he goes on then to say, therefore a lion from the forest will kill them, a desert wolf will ravage them, a leopard watches over their cities. Everyone who ventures out will be torn to pieces, for their rebellion is great, their backslidings frequent. Why, therefore, should I forgive you? Your children have forsaken me and sworn by those who are not gods. Even though I fed them well, they committed adultery and thronged to the prostitute houses. They were well fed, lustful stallions, each neighing for his neighbor's wife. For such should I not punish them? It is a declaration of Adonai. On such a nation as this, should I not avenge myself? All right, so what we have here is that it talks about these predators, these three predators, and you got the lion, the wolf, and the leopard, and the lion from the forest. Now you get the idea that that's a raw, overwhelming power. Now, normally we think of lions in the desert, in the plains, in the savannas of Africa, but in this case, lions from the forest could be a mountain lion. I don't know. but that's what the imagery that they talk about. Lions, they're not sneaky. Boy, they're just right there, and they'll come running at you. And when a lion jumps on you, you're probably not going to have a very good day. And so this symbolizes direct, unmistakable blows of God's judgment. And so things like this happen. A nation cannot deny that, okay, calamity's on us. We're in trouble now. And so the lion represents a frontal assault of covenant curses. You remember the covenant curses. If you don't obey God's commandments, then you're going to be cursed with, invasion, military defeat, and famine, and so forth. Now, the wolf of the desert, or the evening wolf, is some translation. That's a different kind of threat. Wolves hunt at dusk when visibility is low and fear is high. They represent stealthy, creepy forms of judgment, economic decline, internal instability, the slow erosion of the social trust. And wolves do not kill by overwhelming force, but by persistence and pack strategy. A lone wolf is probably not going to attack, or they're not as prone to attack a person as it is when they've got a bunch of their pals with them. Then they will attack. They are pack animals. And so that's a different kind of threat than from the lion. Now, the leopard watching their cities. Now that's a third dimension there. It's the inescapability. And that's a big word. Lots that you just can't escape. There's no getting out of it. So leopards are patient ambush predators. They wait and they watch, and they will strike when escape routes are cut off, or they know that they are able to pounce and you have no way out. And so this imagery here shows that Judah cannot outrun the consequences of its rebellion. The covenant curses are not merely events. They are a moral failure that surrounds the nation. And so the reason that these predators, it's stated plainly, their transgressions are many and their apostasies are great. That's what it spoke of Judah. And so the language keeps building. It's just it's an accumulation. It's not a single lapse, but a pattern of behavior and betrayal of betrayal. And the people have committed spiritual adultery, going out, bowing to idols and violating the covenant with basically the same brazenness as an adulterer who flaunts their infidelity. Not all adulterers are, some of them are just very quiet and sneaky and they don't want anybody to know, but there's other ones that they got a mistress or two on the side and they don't care who knows it. In fact, that's a feather in their hat that they've got all of this stuff going on. They go to the verses called it the houses of prostitution or brothels, or there's other names for it, So verses 7 and 8 here God is asking, why should I pardon you? And it's a rhetorical question, but it just kind of exposes the moral absurdity of expecting blessing while practicing betrayal. And why should I not punish you? You're kicking me in the face. You're insulting me just by being there. Carmen.
So I feel like we're getting into this. We are like this. When I read yesterday, when we talked about when we were told how the 10 Commandments were stopped in Texas, of all places, by people. I looked it up. Christians were part of that group. Jewish leaders were part of that group. What's wrong? I just don't understand this.
Well, that's what I keep saying though. You just can't fix stupid. About the only thing that you can do
I know.
is vote them out or kill them. And so killing is too much paperwork. So you just got to vote them out.
Well, I think that's one of the commandments, so we won't go there.
All right, but you're right.
Right.
What did Solomon say? There's nothing new under the sun, and these
I
same
know.
things, the corruption.
Exactly. And I think I just said to Kara, I said, I think they're like wolves. They're in those positions and they're wolves. Is what they
Right.
are.
Yeah, they are. Martha.
Well, this brings me back to the parable in the New Testament where, a man is cleaning his house. He's known goodness. He's known God. He cleans his house. He goes off for a little while, and then his house is empty and unprotected. And in come all these evil spirits that were greater than the ones he just kicked out. So this is indicative of what our country has done. We followed God. We had the 10 Commandments. There's church powerful in everybody's life. And then the 50s and 60s came along with free sex and women's lib and all of that. And we started slowly kicking God out of everything. And now look what's happening. Our nation is being inundated by more powerful demon forces of paganism than initially. So we brought this on ourselves. And now we've got to deal with these people and these attitudes because they're worse than before. We're not a collected Christian country anymore. We're fragmented, and it's hurting us. That's what I look at it as.
Most definitely, yes.
And the Vicky.
Yeah, just kind of combining what Carmen and Martha has mentioned. I was just going to ask you, so is this part of God's judgment? Are we experiencing his judgment? Just kind of like what you just read, there in Jeremiah, just made me think about that, because kind of like Carmen was saying, this is where we are at. So
well, it certainly would seem like it. I'm looking forward in May, because the president has said in May he's going to have a ceremony to rededicate the entire United States on this 250th anniversary year. He's wanting to rededicate the nation to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and to just to rededicate our whole country back to Judeo-Christian morals and ethics. Now, how that's going to work out, I don't know, because there's probably going to be some people that are going to double down on stupid and try to stop it. But all right.
I hope somebody's going to be out there blowing the shofar, because that's what it's going to take, right? You have to blow the shofar.
There you go. There you
I'm
go.
glad
Okay.
to hear that, though.
All right. Miss Fisher.
Oh, I think that would be great if he would do that. But because, I'm a teacher, I see why some people, even though I think the 10 Commandments should, be in schools, some people could see that as an open door for other religions to say, okay, well, you have the 10 Commandments, we should have the Muslim prayers and all that. So even though, like someone said, the Christians are against it, I don't know if that's their motivation, but I can see that opening the door for other religions that we don't want to be demonstrated in schools to also have a foothold.
I live in New York. Okay, I live in New York, and that door is already open, because you're not allowed to teach Christianity in schools, but the Muslims are doing the call for prayer in New York City, blocking streets, doing everything else, and they are adamant against it. So there needs to be the Bible in school, because I'm telling you, because the enemy is in there, and so you can't ignore it. a lot of this, whether you want to call this the judgment of God, I'm not sure, but it's nothing else. It's the consequences of what we've done. So yeah, so that's what's happening. But I'm just telling you what's already happening in New York.
Mhm. Well, that's
You're right.
that's a good
You're
point.
right.
Yeah, and you know, the other side of it too is you could also, I think, you have a good case for putting the Ten Commandments up there, not particularly as a symbol of any one particular religion, but as an example of historically the foundation of our judicial system within Western civilization, and certainly within the United States. And not, you wouldn't necessarily have to frame it as, you know, oh, this is Judeo-Christian religion, but it is a foundational document, kind of like, you know, if we could put up the Magna Carta as an example of our journey to where we are today in our Western civilization. And so, you know, there's a lot of things, like, you know, we should have a copy of the Constitution in every classroom, so that the kids can read that and look at it, and you know, other examples. But you're right. I mean, we should not back down, and hopefully we'll just keep on pushing and pushing to get the Ten Commandments prominently displayed. They're already, I mean, they're on almost every big government, old big government building, you know, the Supreme Court, the Congress, and many others. And so I don't see any, you know, that they're not burning the buildings down just because they have the Ten Commandments in them. So yeah, it's not ideal, it's not good, but we just have to press on and keep pushing to get that. Joseph.
Yes, I have good news for you. The Lord is coming soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It sure is. And when he does, he'll take care of it all. Because what does the Bible say? He's gonna rule the earth with a rod of iron. And so there won't be any more bowing in the streets of New York, that's for sure. So and there won't be any godless subdivisions in Plano, Texas either. So I need to go. Keep going here. So anyway, God is saying, you know, should I not punish these guys? You know, what's the reason why I shouldn't punish them? And of course, judgment is not arbitrary. God's judgment is not just arbitrary. It's a moral necessity, and it's in response to people who have rejected every kind of restraint, and they're going out there without any moral compass, as it were. So Jeremiah 10-13, go up into our vines and ravage them, but do not completely destroy them. Strip away her branches, for they are not Adonai's. For the house of Israel and the house of Judah have been utterly unfaithful to me. It is a declaration of Adonai. They have lied about Adonai, saying, not he, no harm will come to us, nor will we see sword or famine. The prophets are but wind, and the word is not in them. Let what they say be done to them. So what we have here is they've got false security that it's based on false prophecy, is what it amounts to. The moral condition of Judah is exposed, and with it the inevitability of judgment that's coming. It's going to be coming. And so the narrative shifts then to the spiritual infrastructure that has enabled the nation's rebellion. Verses 10 to 13 here, they're indictment of Judah's false prophets and the people's delusional confidence in their message. The section open here. Okay, the section opens with this command. It says, "Go up and into the vines and go into our vines and ravage them." Okay, but do not completely destroy them. So what we see there is that the imagery again is going back to agriculture, but the real meaning is the covenant, because Judah is the vineyard of God, and the invaders are instructed to strip away the branches, the outward structures of national life, but leave that root stock intact. Judgment will be severe, but it's not annihilating. It's not going to be such that the vine will not recover. And so this anticipates, all throughout we see that God he retains a remnant no matter what. And so the reason for this partial destruction is stated plainly that they're not gods. These people have turned away from God. They're just not my people anymore. They don't follow me, and so they cease to be God's covenant people in a sense. By their current behavior makes them look just like all of the other nations, and so their covenant, they still have the name that they are God's chosen people. However, in practice, they really are not. They have gone so far away, and so this vineyard imagery underscores the tragedy that the people who were planted to bear justice and righteousness before the whole world, now they produce sour fruit of idolatry and deceit. And so these verses here, 11 and 12, they just expose the heart of the problem. The people have denied the seriousness of their sin and the reality of divine judgment. They're saying, God's not going to do anything to us. He's not even really paying attention to us. And, we see that today. He's the song, God is watching us from a distance. He's not going to do anything. He's out there someplace. If he is out there someplace, or she is out there someplace, or they, them is out there someplace, it's gotten so weird, and people really they dismiss the idea that they're going to be held accountable for their actions, if not in this world, certainly in the Olam Haba, the world to come. So, and then the false prophets, well, shoot, they're the ones that are just piling on here. They're coming in and said the word here says that they are the wind. They're like wind, and the word is not in them. Well, what is wind? I mean, you look out there, you can feel the effects of it. You can, in some cases, you don't ever see the wind. You just see things that are driven by the wind, the leaves and the snow or the rain or the sleet or whatever, but you don't see the wind. And that's, you can't hold the wind in your hand. And that's what Jeremiah is saying here, that their prophecies are, you can't hold on to them, and it's nothing. It's nothing concrete. And what is concrete is God's judgment coming because of covenant failure. So, verses 14 to 19. Now, this is a long one here, I admit, but therefore, thus says Adonai Elohei Tzvaot, because you speak this word, behold, I will make my words in your mouth fire, and his people wood, and it will devour them. See, I am bringing a nation against you from afar, O house of Israel. It is a declaration of Adonai. It is an enduring nation, an ancient nation, a nation whose language you neither know or understand what they say. Their quiver is an open grave. They are all mighty warriors. They will devour your harvest and your food, and they will devour your sons and daughters. They will devour your flocks and your herds. They will devour your vines and your fig trees. They will demolish your fortified cities, the ones in which you trust, with the sword. They're going to devour your fortified cities with the sword. Yet even in those days, declares Adonai, I will not completely destroy you. So it will come to pass that when you ask, why has Adonai Eloheinu done all these things to us? You will tell them, as you have forsaken me and served foreign gods in your land, so will you serve strangers in a land that is not yours. All right, so in this section, we see that the word, Jeremiah's word now is symbolically a fire, and he's coming in against Judah, Israel, and Judah and Israel are just dry wood. They're sticks, they're hay, they're stubble, and that fire of God's word is going to hit them and burn them up. And so it's that imagery that it's kind of poetic in a way. It says, my word through Jeremiah is fire, and these people and their rebellion is wood. And so we know what happens when wood hits fire, and it burns up. The wood does not overpower the fire, and so now they're going to be utterly not utterly destroyed, totally destroyed, because the Lord says, we're going to keep a remnant. It's not going to be total, but and then he talks about the agent of this fiery judgment is not only Jeremiah's word, but it's going to be an actual country, and it comes from afar, and the fire comes from afar. Okay, that's Texas joke. Never mind. But it's clearly Babylon. Is even though they're not named here, it's the next empire that comes in and invades Israel and destroys the temple. And so this description it's crafted so that it's going to evoke fear and awe, and the shock and awe, like we had a few years ago. It is ancient. Well, Babylon, of course, had been around a long time in one form or another, and it's enduring, so it's gonna stay around. It's got a stability. The language is foreign. They have no connection with Israel, either culturally or militarily or anything like that. So this foreign language is not only a linguistic barrier, but it's a covenant curse. And so when a nation hears foreign speech in its streets, it's a sign that the covenant has been violated and judgment has arrived. And so and then it goes on to describe all the different ways that the invader is going to destroy them, and devouring everything: harvest, sons and daughters, flocks and herds and vines and fig trees, the fortified cities, basically almost everything. It's a comprehensive devastation, and it's not 100%, but it's 99, 44, 100% destruction. So there'll be a little bit left over, but not much. And even in verse 18 there, let me pull that up. It says, "Yet even in those days, declares Adonai, I will not completely destroy you." And so again, God is going to keep a remnant around somehow, some way. And so then 19, it anticipates, verse 19 anticipates the people's question. Why has God, our God, done all these things to us? And the answer is covenantal, and it's symmetrical. As you have forsaken me, and you serve these foreign little g gods in your land, or actually the land that God gave to them, so you will serve foreigners in a land that is not yours. So basically the punishment fits the crime. And they wanted to worship foreign gods. Well, they're going to get it, because they're going to be worshiping in under the rule of foreign nations. So this is poetic justice in its finest form. Martha.
Yes, sir. Does this have anything to do in reference to Daniel 9 and the years that the Jewish people were going to be in exile because they did not obey the 7-year leaving the ground fallow? And I know this also refers to Messiah being cut off, but does this draw a correlation back to Daniel 9 as far as them being exiled to Babylon?
Absolutely. It is a correlation, a direct correlation to the 70 years that that Israel was in Babylonian captivity, equated, or it corresponded, is a word I need, to the 490 years that Israel did not observe the Shemitah year, the 7-year sabbatical. And they did not do that for 490 years. So if you take 490 years divided by 7, which, every 7th year they're supposed to do that, what do you get? You get 70 years of exile, where God said, the land is going to have its rest, no matter what. And you can do it, you can do it the easy way, or you can do it the hard way. And so it ended up, they did it the hard way. But it is a direct correlation. It really is.
Okay, because this almost sounds like that isn't even brought to mind what Daniel prophesied in relation to what God is saying to the people, you disobeyed me. So was this disobedience in relation to Daniel 9 and then not keeping the 7th year fouled for the ground? So I don't, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's all part of it, because it's their refusal to follow covenant commitments that God had put on them. And that in Deuteronomy it talked about it. If you will obey my covenant and my laws, my mitzvot, then I will bless you. And if you don't obey my mitzvot, my covenant, the commandments, then I will curse you. And the list of curses is about 3 times longer than the list of blessings. And so Jeremiah did not mention the prophecy of Daniel, but we can see in retrospect now that it's exactly what it was. And that's just one more reason for the 70 years, was because of the 490 in which they refused to let the land rest like God had required them to.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right. 20 to 25. Declare this in the house of Jacob and proclaim it in Judah, saying, hear this, you foolish people who have no understanding, who have eyes but do not see, who have ears but do not hear. Do you not fear me, says Adonai? Do you not tremble in my presence? For I made the sand a boundary of the sea, an everlasting decree that cannot be broken. Though the waves roll, they cannot prevail. Though they roar, they cannot cross it. But this people have a stubborn and rebellious heart. They have turned aside and gone away. They do not say in their heart, let us now fear Adonai Eloheinu, who gives rain in the season, fall rain in the spring rain, who reserves for us the appointed weeks of harvest. Now, your iniquities have turned these away. Your sins have deprived you of bounty. All right, so what we have here is just the irrationality of rebellion and the subsequent, the consequential withholding of blessing. So this section here shifts from the imagery of invading nations and a consuming fire to a more maybe a reflective, almost a philosophical indictment. God commands Jeremiah, declare this and proclaim it. The message is not merely for the leaders or the elites, but for everyone, the entire house of Jacob. And so the tone here, I believe, is one of astonishment. Basically, it says, how can a people with such spiritual privilege, they had everything going for them. They had, they saw my power at Sinai. They saw the provision in the desert for 40 years. They saw the miraculous conquest of Canaan against much larger enemies. And yet they're just spiritually numb or spiritually blind, I guess is another way of saying it. And so he says that these are, declare this to people who have eyes, but they don't see, and ears, but they don't hear. And so this is obviously not something of a physical disability, but willful spiritual blindness. And they've chosen not to perceive what is the obvious. Okay, they're just not as plain as the nose on their face, and they're not going to they just choose not to look at it. It's like the monkeys, with the closing the eyes, ears, and the mouth, and that sort of thing. That's just the way these people are. And so this is not a lack of revelation. They know, they've been taught, they know somewhere in the back of their mind that there's been, they know what's right, but then they just refuse to do it. In verses 22 and 23, there's a big contrast between creation's obedience and Judah's rebellion. God says, look at the sea. I put the beaches up there and the boundaries for the sea. The sea doesn't cross over into that, and the waves can roar against it and they can pound against it, but they cannot cross over and just cover up all the land. Because why? God said he's never going to allow the earth to be destroyed by flood again. So nature responds to God's command with consistency and reverence. And remember what I said yesterday in the sermon about praising God. If we don't praise God, then even the rocks will cry out. So don't be a rock star. Go ahead and praise God and do what you were supposed to, what you were created for, and that is praise. Okay, so the people of Judah, they just, I say again, they just double down on stupid. That here they would go after these gods and fear what these little g carved gods that they made up for themselves by their own hands, and then here's our God, and it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever in their life. But I can see even in today's world where people will put things ahead of God, and I don't need God because why? Well, I've got pharmaceuticals, I've got AI, I got the biggest, baddest computer that is known to man, and I just really don't have time, nor do I need God. What could he possibly do for me? I've got all this other good stuff. We see that, is it the same as idolatry? Maybe it's not an identical twin, but it sure is a blood brother. So verse 24 said that these people, what should have been a natural response for covenant people of gratitude and reverence to God, and he sent them the autumn and the spring rains, the agricultural rhythms that sustained life for them. If they don't have those rains, the former rain and the latter rain, they don't have crops. They don't have crops. That is an awful tough land to live in when you don't get these proper natural meteorological events. And so those are actually covenant blessings. God said that if you obey the laws, I will send the rains in their due season. And so, but these people now, they take them for granted. Oh yeah, we get that every year. It's no big deal. I mean, that just comes, does God send those things? Nah, it just comes anyway. And so, but then the verse 25, it kicks in. It says, your iniquities have turned away. Your sins have withheld good from you. It's because of your sin that all of these good things, the blessings, are now taken away. And so that cuts right down to the bottom line there. Their sins have deprived them of God's blessing. All right. Verse 26 to 29. For among my people are wicked men watching like bait layers, lying in wait. They set a trap, they catch men. As a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. That is why they grew great and rich. They grew fat and sleek. They also overlooked evil deeds. They do not uphold the cause of an orphan to prosper, nor do they defend the right of the poor. Should I not punish them, says Adonai? On such a nation, should I not avenge myself? So here we basically have social predation. The mighty, the powerful have come up against and preyed upon the lesser individuals, the common folk, the poor people, the orphans. And then they have a total collapse of justice. And so in earlier sections, it exposed Judah's spiritual blindness and their theological irrationality, as it were. And so this section then exposes the social consequences of that rebellion. So sin is never merely vertical. Okay, sin doesn't affect just you. Generally speaking, sin always becomes horizontal. It affects people around us. When you sin by being unfaithful to your spouse, it does not. It's not a one. Just yourself that it affects that you've sinned against. You sinned against your wife, and then your children, your friends, your family. Everybody knows. I mean, that you've let all of them down. My point is that sin affects people horizontally, and so they have in Jerusalem there. They have now institutionalized injustice, and it's called. Today we would call it. Weaponized lawfare. And I think we've seen that in the last few years where, and even today, we have judges that try to legislate from the bench rather than looking at what the Constitution says. They make rulings based on what they want things to be and not based on what the Constitution says. And so they had the same thing back in those days. And so verse 26 says, wicked men are found among my people. It's okay. This is not reference to isolated criminals, but these are individuals that are embedded within the community. These are people that, they're the pillars of society, as it were. And they just go in and corrupt, and they destroy people. And it said, I like the imagery there. Houses are full of deceit, like cages stuffed with birds. You can imagine somebody getting a bunch of I don't know, you see them sometimes where they're taking chickens to market. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Y'all don't live in the country like I do, but you'll see trucks and they'll have these crates that, they're open air crates. They can, you can see in them. And man, they'll have a gazillion chickens in these crates. You wonder, how in the world did they get that many chickens in this? They don't have any room. How many of them are going to die of suffocation before they get to the market? And so that's what comes up in my mind. Like I said, maybe you've never seen that before, but that's the imagery that I see. And so, it says these guys are like trappers. They lay in wait and try to entrap people, and they're muggers. Basically, that's what you'd say, that they're muggers on a much larger scale, more social mugging, as it were, rather than just the individual carjacker. And so, but verse 28 then, it says that they've grown fat and sleek. This is just indulgence, complacency, that these guys have gotten, they've gotten away with it so long. They've profited from it so long. It's one of those things of, what difference at this point does it make? And they seem to be totally above the law. So Judah it's totally corrupted. But then God says, okay, shouldn't I punish them for this thing? I mean, God is, the covenant demanded justice, and because God is just, he had to come up with justice. So judgment is the only righteous response here. So, when a nation worships false gods, whether they're literal idols or cultural idols, it inevitably dehumanizes that nation and its people. And so that's kind of, we've talked about it here. That's kind of where we are today, where we have really had different idols, and in a way we worship them rather than acknowledging the Creator. Verses 30 and 31, an appalling and horrible thing has happened in the land. The prophets prophesy falsely. The Kohanim, the priests, rule by their own authority, and my people love it this way. But what will you do in the end? All right, so here's kind of a tragic thing toward the end here. This is a shocking and a horrible and shocking thing has happened. The prophets that prophesy falsely, and so that's like people talking about in our own country, if we do this or that or the other, it's okay. We're good. We're Americans. Bad things don't happen to Americans because we're the greatest nation this world has ever seen, and so there's nothing that really can bring us down. That sort of thing. That's what they told the people in the prophets in Judah were saying. And then they have these priests that get up there and they make their own rules as such. I just finished finished reading a book that talked about the non-Torah, the oral Torah that has been touted over to the last 2,500 years as being equivalent to, if not exceeding, the authority of the written scriptures that we have today. And so these priests do that. The Pharisees did it, and then now the rabbinical Judaism has done that to kind of establish their own authority and the things that they wanted to stay in power. And so it's just we still are dealing with those kind of things today, and they make their own rules, and one of their rules was that Yeshua, Jesus, was not the Messiah, and that has now lasted for 2,000 years with mainstream Judaism, requiring people to understand that Yeshua, Jesus, was not the Messiah. Period. And so that's why we still have that today. We still have it. So the the part that really shocks me, and I'll finish off here real quickly, is it says the people love it this way. They don't care. They like what's going on. And we'll see that in our own nation today, that there are people that, so what if we got these Somalians up there robbing people blind with their corruption, and the governor is probably profiting from that? Who knows? But people said, it's no big deal. That's just the way we are. That's America for you. And so the bottom line is, then God says, well, what do you do in the end? How's this going to turn out for you? And so that kind of ends the lesson for us. Warren.
Rabbi, yeah, I do have an observation. It seems to me that verse 19 kind of capsulizes something, because so often God's judgment comes in the similitude of the transgression, because it says Ka'asher azavtem oti v'ta'avdu Elohei nechar b'tzachem ken ta'avdu zarim be'eretz lo lechem, saying that because you forsake me, you forgot me, and you served strange gods in your own land, so you shall serve strangers in the land that's not yours. So, right. And we see that so often in when God pronounces judgments upon his people, that the judgment will be after the similitude of the transgression, just as the exile into Babylon for 70 years was to make up for the fact that the people had not properly observed the Shemitah and letting the land rest for all that time. So now God sent them away to Babylon and said, okay, now the land's going to get that rest that they should have had. And so here again is another example of where God will bring forth the judgment, but it's in the very similitude of the transgression that the people committed.
Exactly right. That's a good point. And I think I hesitate to use the word, but we use it all the time. And well, that's karma for you. What goes around comes around. That's another way of in our own modern day idioms is how that is spoken of. That, yeah, the very thing that you did, now it's coming back on you. Just what you did to others, it's now coming down on you. And so that's exactly what is happening here, and that's it's going to happen, I believe, in our modern day society also. So there you go. Well, anyway, that's the lesson for tonight, and I don't know if there are any other comments or questions that anyone might have, but Vicki.
Yeah, just real quick. I'm just like really amazed at the parallel of, what we just studied and what we see going on even here in our society today. So yeah, thanks so much. This is good stuff. It's just amazing how all of this, just comes together. We can just see, I guess in a sense, just see the Lord's heart through Jeremiah, but also, just how it applies today in the nation and the church actually too.
Right. Well, and the thing is I could have made this last a whole lot longer, an hour or so longer, if I had just gone down to examples of what's going on today right in our own our own land and our own society. But you kind of have to curtail things and keep it down to an hour or so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I thank you too, especially for all the work you put into this.
Well, it's enjoyable. It does. I enjoy it. So, Joseph, you got a comment?
No, yes, Rabbi, a question for you. And I know you put a lot of work into this and you're tired, but can you give us a fill in for what's going on over yonder? You heard from anybody? You heard from relatives? You heard from contacts? How's the war going?
Well, it just depends on who you talk to, because I've got people up there in the north that are still running for the bomb shelters because of Hezbollah trying to shoot off rockets, and I think they hit I can't remember if it was a Hezbollah or an Iranian, maybe it was Iranian cluster bomb hit a daycare yesterday. But being Shabbat, the daycare was not open, and it hit the daycare, demolished it, but there were no children there because it being Shabbat, they were all home with their families. So you still got that sort of stuff, and things that personally I don't understand. They keep saying, well, they've reduced Iran's capabilities by 90 to 95%, but they're still getting a lot of stuff out there. And how in the world they can say, how Iran can say, well, the Straits of Hormuz are closed until we say they're open. And so by what authority, by what, them and whose army? And so, I think it's, there needs to be a point where there's not even any Iranian authorities left alive that can make these threats. Is what I'm looking for anyway.
I was connecting with a friend, a rabbi friend, who Messianic rabbi in Bat Yam, and he explained to me that they've been having to go down to the shelter in the apartment building where he is a few times. They had to do they did the Shabbat service through like Zoom online because it was kind of messing up. If you got to go running, to the bomb shelter all the time, it kind of makes it hard for people to get together. He said that because he had to go because he was involved in doing ministry distribution of supplies to people, and had to travel to different parts of the country to pick things up. And he said that even on the way, he'd get an alert, and they'd have to pull off the side of the road, and then complete total strangers, Israelis, would say, "Come over here," and they'd hop in the shelter. But that's the way Israelis are. I mean, they're like, "Hey, I never met you before, but we're in this together. I'm going to be in your."
I saw one where the police were arresting a group of antiquities thieves, and they were in the process of arresting these guys that were trafficking in antiquities, the old stuff, and that. And so they were making arrests. Well, the next thing you know, okay, here comes an air raid shelter. So they grab all of their prisoners and trundle them all down into a bomb shelter so that nobody would get hurt. They didn't leave their prisoners out there shackled so that they would get hurt. But
oh, absolutely, yeah.
But what other army in the world though sends before they send the bombs, they send leaflets out says, "Get out because here we come," and that's Israel.
And they're getting messages from people in Iran saying, "Listen, don't stop. I know you're bombing my country, but we're cool. We're cool with it. We're good with it. Do it. Because we've been under oppression for like 47 years. So yeah. So I mean,
I remember, of course, I'm old enough to remember when all that stuff went down. I was still on active duty, and for a lot of years after that. But I served with people who were captives in there at the embassy. And several years later, I actually served and were friends with people who were in there, and that their descriptions, they were not good conditions. And it was I mean, it made it very real for me when you actually sit there in a country team meeting in the embassy with people that were actually there at and captured in Iran. It was interesting stuff.
Thank you very much for the teaching tonight. It's always great to sit in and
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank
it. All right, there. So so it's good to see you there, Jen. I guess now you're the one that's moving to Montana. Okay, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. Now, are you going to still be here on the 7th of April? Okay. Well, look up on our webpage, and that's when we're having our corporate Passover Seder. And so, if you can, come down and you got your kids and all that still here in Texas. Invite them to come along with you and be in our Passover Seder on the 7th of April. Yeah, I know it's not the first day of the Passover; it's probably the last. But you do what you can do when you're renting from a church. It's just you do the best you can with what you got. So, all right. Any other comments that anybody might have for tonight before I punch the buttons and jump in now working on my sermon for next week?
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. Good to see you on board here tonight, Joseph. Hope you continue with your recovery.
Thank you. Yeah, God have been blessed me. I'm doing quite well along the way. Thank you for praying for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was made my heart glad to see you yesterday.
Yes, me too. I love to see all the people. I just miss everybody.
Yep. There you go.
All right.
All right, guys.
Good night,
Huh?
everybody. Bye-bye.
Lala Tov, Erev Tov.
Okay. Shavuot Tov, Laila Tov, and Bezrat Hashem, we'll see you next Sunday night when we'll do chapter 6, and we'll see what else God told Jeremiah to do. So, y'all be with us and have a good week. It looks like it's going to be a good week, and so just be blessed.